Good evening and welcome to the Monday, October 24th, 2022 meeting of the Long Meadow School Committee. School committees and other public bodies may continue to hold remote meetings through March 31st, 2023 under new legislation enacted in July of 2022. The statute...
I'm sorry. Thank you. Could we...
Start again?
Yeah, we should start
All right.
over.
Good evening again, and welcome to the Monday, October 24th, 2022 meeting of the Long Meadow School Committee. The school committees and other public bodies may continue to hold remote meetings through March 31st, 2023 under new legislation enacted in July of 2022. The statute, Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, extends quorum reductions for remote meetings. All votes while there is remote participation must be made by roll call vote. The meeting is being recorded and aired live on LCTV. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
See that we have no correspondence for this evening, so we will move right ahead to the approval of minutes. There is a recommended motion.
Move that the school committee approve the minutes to the October 11th, 2022 school committee meeting as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any conversation? Seeing no discussion, we'll move to a roll call vote. Gianna?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Kevin?
Abstain.
Jamie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. All right, moving forward to visitor comments. I do not see, oh, I do see a visitor potentially in the online waiting room. So if anybody has any visitor comments, please feel free to raise a hand, turn on a camera, wave an arm, use the hand raise gesture, or anything else to let us know. We do not see any comments at this time, so we will move ahead to school committee announcements and recognitions. Does anybody have any announcements or recognitions to make? Gianna?
Thank you, Nicole. I just want to say thank you to all of the everyone who had a part in organizing and presenting the college fair today. Cecilia had a great time, and she said it was nice to walk around with an open mind, and she learned about 2 new colleges that she might be interested in learning more about. So thank you to all who participated, and again to all who presented it. It was really great.
Wonderful, thank you. Mary?
Thank you to the high school teachers for the parent-teacher conference night last week, and I look forward to middle school and elementary school coming up, and I'll say thanks about those after they happen. And I just wanted to share that my 5th grade daughter who attends center school, she did an activity and a rubric came home, and it was measuring independent work, and at the top it had the Vision of the Graduate logo on it, and I was like, wow, they're really using the language and talking about some of the things. And the rubric was measuring, I refrained from chatting. You know, it was practical things about skills that kids maybe didn't have as much practice with our recent disrupted years of learning. So it's kind of neat. And it was that logo that's here on our wall, Vision of the Graduate, right on the top of the rubric.
Great to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Very cool. Any other recognitions or comments? All right, seeing none, we are going to roll on to business with guests, and we are going to go slightly out of order and move our ongoing business note up to business with guests related to an acceptance of a gift. We'll turn that over to you, Dr. O'Shea.
If it's okay with the committee, we have some guests in relation to agenda item 12, agenda item 11, the acceptance of a gift. Joining us shortly will be our 2 cross-country coaches. There they are, right on cue. You guys can come right up to the table. Thanks for joining us. Coach Chris Kirby and Coach Marianne Smith are dedicated and longtime cross-country coaches and track coaches as well. And so thanks for joining us. Last week, the committee had a chance to have a preliminary discussion on a donation that Marianne and Chris have been the point persons on. There's a number of anonymous donors that are behind the donation, but this is a a statue that would be installed near the concession stand in the stadium field. And the committee, I think Coach Kerr, Coach Smith had an opportunity to listen to some of the conversation at your last meeting and took it under consideration, and we thought it'd be great to have them here to clarify anything that needed clarification. But I think one of the sort of main takeaways in my conversations with the coaches was that it would be helpful to have an inscription at the base of the statue that would have some verbiage to explain that it is a commemoration, it is a commitment, reflecting commitment to the heart, the spirit, the determination of our cross-country and track athletes at the high school, but also town-wide. And so in that spirit of celebration and recognition is the reason that they had proposed this statue. It's obviously a good chance for us to recognize a student, Kat Boscovich, who passed away back in June. But really, this is a timeless statue meant to celebrate the heart and determination and sportsmanship of our track and cross-country athletes. So I appreciated that Coach Kerr and Coach Smith took the feedback from the committee under advisement and spent some time with me thinking it through and offering that inscription at the base of the statue, which we think will kind of hit home and make this an even more sort of timeless way for us to celebrate the spirit of Long Meadow runners across the whole town. So it's as a per your policy, it does require a vote of the school committee, since it is a gift that would be installed on school grounds. So thank you, Coach Smith and Coach Kerr, for joining us. And if the committee has any questions or any feedback, they're here to answer.
We're happy to explain. We're happy to show.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll open for questions, discussion, commentary.
I just want to, I want to say thank you for doing this, but also thank you for, hearing our conversation. And it's funny because before we had the conversation, when Mary and I were sharing about, we do our school committee shout-outs and recognitions, and we both were speaking to the spirit and the camaraderie and the heart, really, of, I'm familiar with cross-country and track, and Mary was talking about, so then to have that discussion, and then, so to come back to this with the message of, I'll speak for myself, but it was just really important that there was some kind of message about that spirit and the heart, so that it doesn't just depict one kind of runner, one kind of person. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We hang out a lot together. Does anybody have any
anything you want to
questions?
I have a comment.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I was thinking, in the original proposal, it had said that the unveiling could be with the girls' cross-country team, but I would love to see that extended to all of the runners, and not just at Long Meadow High School, but all of your incoming runners, because we have this really wonderful town program, through our Parks and Rec program. So. It was really unrelated to the statue that we knew that was coming up on the agenda, or that I knew it was coming up on the agenda, but my comments were just about the inclusive nature, and we had just attended a meet for the elementary kids, and the kids are cheering just as loud for that last kid coming over the line, and I think that it's just a really neat sport in that aspect, that everybody is a winner kind of in this personal journey of running. You're competing against yourself in addition to being a member of a team. It's just a neat sport. So I do think it would be nice to include in an unveiling athletes from the different programs in town.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be clear, we would also include track. Kat was a significant, she was actually a better track athlete than she was a cross-country athlete. So it would include all runners, and we would include both the boys and the girls. It would be impactful across the board.
I probably would just like to add, certainly one of your concerns that it wasn't reflective of all runners. When a runner sees another runner, it doesn't matter the size, shape, age. We look at that runner and you're inspired. So we really wanted a runner that would inspire all runners. So we happened to choose this. We felt that it reflective of Kat's spirit, and I do believe that not having it named kind of reflects who Kat was too. That she was so humble. So I think it's beautiful, and so we agree with your concerns, and we hope that we have addressed what you were concerned about. So we're in agreement, and hopefully you are.
Julie?
I think one of the other questions that came up in the last meeting was just like, given that it is in, you know, we want to make it timeless, but it also is about Kat, that it's something that her family is.
I've talked to her mom and her mother. I mean, and I will speak to her again, but I actually had her mom in my office. I showed her, so this is actually Chris's, but I have one up in my office as well. And so I showed her, and I told her that, you know, that in the works was a larger one in front of the concession stand, or to the right, in front of the record board. And she was in agreement, but I will certainly make it a more formal acknowledgement.
And the other issue that was raised were the other runners, and were they okay with that? And so we went back and we polled them. We didn't want to say anything prior to getting approval, but we did ask them, and they thought it was beautiful.
Yep.
So.
And then I know another concern was whether or not it would be a triggering event in order, to have this kind of so close to the event. We've actually already celebrated her birthday as a team. Her birthday was in September. There is a Run for Kat on the day after Thanksgiving. So being completely, respectful, like I don't think that this per se would necessarily be a triggering event. It may evoke emotions. It evokes emotions every day for me. But with that being said, I don't think it's going to be a necessarily a triggering event.
Any other comments, questions, Kevin?
I think it's wonderful. Thank you for making this happen. I think it's really wonderful.
I just would like to say one thing too, as coaches, we spend every afternoon for 4 years with these students, and as parents, sometimes we see your kids more than we actually see ours. So there's really just a loving connection that is created. And so this really was done out of great love. And one of the things that we're trying to create with our cross-country team is an alumni and a forever bond. Because I think if you look back at your high school years, you remember them. They're pretty powerful. And you remember the people. And so we want to create that forever bond. So.
It's timeless.
All right, further questions?
I'm good. I
comments?
just echo what Kev said. I think it's great. Thank you for everything you do,
Thank you.
both
Thank
with
you.
this
Yeah,
and just
thank you.
coaching and all the time.
All right, anything else? If nothing else, we have a possible motion in front of us.
I move that the school committee
Second.
accept with genuine appreciation a gift of the runner statue to be installed near the Long Meadow High School track.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? I'll just offer thanks for coming in tonight, and thank you for hearing the questions and things that we were concerned about or had more follow-up questions with from 2 weeks ago. It was helpful to be able to talk through some of that and find out more about your project. So thank you very much for taking the time to do that and for coming here tonight and sharing with us.
Great.
Thank you for
Pleasure.
giving us the time.
Well,
Thank
we're
you.
going to vote. Hold tight. I mean, you don't have to stay, but if you want to stay.
All right, we're going to go run.
If there is nothing further, we'll move to a roll call vote. Gianna?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Zach, I'm sorry, hello. Zach, yes, Gianna.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Julie.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Jamie.
Yes.
And yes for me as well. All right, thank you very much again. Sorry, Zach.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we are moving into administrative reports and superintendent report. I'll turn that back over to you.
Yeah, a few things. I want to thank Mary for acknowledging the work that our elementary educators have done with the vision of the graduate and trying to integrate that into the learner behaviors and providing that feedback to parents as well. So that, and it's just a reflection, I think, of the efforts of our educators across the district, but especially our elementary educators who are always looking to, learn and grow in the way that they serve students and serve families. So I'm appreciative that you mentioned that. And this has been, certainly it's a more typical year than last year, but, we continue to ask a lot of educators in the face of some staffing gaps. There's fewer than there were earlier in the year, but we continue to see some gaps with among the paraprofessional ranks and a few educator positions. So I'm appreciative that they pitch in, they help out, and they step up. They help one another in order to make it a great experience for kids. So kudos to them for that. So thanks so much. A few dates. Of course, we have the fall town meeting is tomorrow evening. We have negotiations ongoing with two of our bargaining units. Middle school conferences are coming up. There was an LHS chamber concert. It's an intimate chamber concert. I think they do it in Seminar A at the high school. It's a really cool event if you have a chance to go. Elementary conferences are the 2nd and 3rd of November. And November 8th is Election Day, but it will be a day of civic duty also for our school committee. We have a policy subcommittee meeting and a school committee meeting, and then Veterans Day coming up. A couple items. We have been pretty actively working in the last few weeks with Long Meadow Fire, Long Meadow Police around school safety, and so I'm appreciative that we recently had a district safety meeting. We hit a couple of key items. One was in relation to tabletop emergency threat exercises that we will resume. They had been on hold during sort of the COVID years, but we have an opportunity to work with Long Meadow Police, Long Meadow Fire, doing these tabletop exercises at each of the schools. It's an opportunity for us to think about how we would apply the incident response principles of the Massachusetts State Police in response to threats. So when we do these tabletops, we gather key personnel at each school, administrators, front office staff, custodians, and others who might be at the front lines of responding to a real or perceived threat. So they've been really effective in the past, and I'm eager to get back to those. The Long Meadow Fire Department, I appreciate that they continue to think forward in terms of fire drills, and increasingly Chief Dearborn is framing fire drills as multi-hazard evacuations. So they're drills in the sense that they would help us respond if there were a fire, but they're also, we're approaching these drills in a way that would help us help teachers make decisions on their feet if they ever needed to. So in the framework of a fire department drill, we are looking at trying to sort of throw some curveballs, frankly, at our staff to help them think through how they would respond if a particular exit wasn't accessible, or if there was a particular part of the building they couldn't walk through. So that evolving approach to multi-hazard evacuation is helpful in terms of responding to even active intruder events. So, and I know that sadly there was another example of a school shooting, I believe in St. Louis. I haven't read the reports, but Diane was briefing me earlier. So, we want to continue to keep that at the front of our minds and be sure that we are preparing to respond to something that we hope never happens. And then ongoing discussions about our response to athletic emergencies. So Chief Dearborn briefed the safety team on the work that the fire department has done recently to be prepared to respond to events that happen in our athletic fields or on a cross-country course. So they've taken some real positive steps forward, and he and Tom Landers in the high school administration and we've been thinking about how to conduct some sort of life safety practices with our student athletes, maybe a little bit in the fall for some of our athletic teams, but maybe more comprehensive event in the spring. So school safety has been on the top of our agenda in recent weeks, and thanks to LFD and LPD for their partnership in that. Calendar committee, consistent with the requirements of the Unit A contract, we're going to be convening a meeting of the calendar committee to prepare calendar for the 23-24 academic year. MCAS results were distributed and probably received by families over the weekend. We've begun to analyze those. You'll note that there was no high-level accountability rating from the Department of Education this year. There are obviously achievement results, but none of the accountability ratings that we've seen in the past, just because of the disruption to the state testing program in recent years. But Sue and I have begun to think through a achievement and climate data presentation to you at an upcoming meeting. So if you have any thoughts on what you'd like to see, you can let Sue or I know, and we'll pull that together. School improvement plans, I'm hoping we can have the administrative team appear at your meeting on December 13th to talk about our progress with regard to school improvement plans. We're in the second year of a 2-year school improvement planning cycle, so the thought is that the administrative team could come to the committee and report on their progress on their plans, the progress that they made in the 21-22 school year. And so that's all I have. I have a slide deck that I'm planning to use at the town meeting tomorrow evening, if that would be of interest to the committee. So if you can give me a minute to pull that up, if you want to move on to any other reports that you might have, I'll pull that up.
Sure, we can do that,
All right.
absolutely. Assistant Superintendent report, first, we'll circle back to you and ask about questions. I don't want to
Yep.
distract you. No reports from Assistant Superintendents. All right, couple of notes for Chair report. First up, in relation to the town meeting tomorrow at 7 p.m., if there are families who are interested in attending that are wondering about babysitting, there are still a handful of babysitting spaces available, so check your email that went out to all families in the district related to that and sign up today. The Leaf Gala, also a reminder that is coming up soon on Saturday, November 5th. The Leaf Gala will be held at Twin Hills Country Club. You can buy tickets online at goleaf.org. Speaking of Leaf, earlier last week, Leaf was available at the schools to distribute this year's grant awards. Over the last 20 years, Leaf has distributed over $1.4 million in grants to the Longmeadow Public Schools. This year, some of the recipients were for awards related to classroom libraries, math manipulatives. There were some exterior courtyard improvements, electrical instruments, a CPR project, Action Civics, so a diverse collection of wonderful projects granted by Leaf. So big thank you to them from Longmeadow Public Schools for all that they do and make possible in the schools. We also had another donation last week from Junior Girl Scout Troop 64922, who donated over at Blueberry Hill School Courtyard a raised wheelchair handicapped accessible garden bed. And there's some great pictures of that on the Longmeadow Public Schools Facebook page. So if you haven't gotten to check those out yet, take a peek at that. And last, just a reminder to committee members that NEASC's decennial accreditation visit is scheduled for Sunday, December 4th. We have been invited to a virtual meeting. We do not have a time on that yet, but just put a pin in that date if you might be able to make it. That would be wonderful. And more on that as it gets closer. All right.
Good time.
Shall we kick back to you?
Sure.
All right, go for it.
I will spare you the full presentation, but I just wanted to give the committee a a sense of the discussion that we'll have at town meeting tomorrow night. This presentation has been shared with the town moderator, Rebecca Townsend. So to begin, I will sort of walk the residents through a brief history of the middle schools and where we have been in terms of studying the buildings, both in 2015 with JCJ Architects, renewed a facility study at Glenbrook and Williams, and then kudos to the school committee for deciding in the 2021 school year to take a deeper dive into the condition of our two middle schools. I really think it was that Collier's report was something that I think pushed us over the finish line, frankly, with the MSBA, and it helped us get the attention of the MSBA and really document the significant amount of repairs that are in front of us, that the $30 million that was documented by Colliers, and of course that's in 2021 terms. The SOI was submitted in May of '21. We were invited to proceed by the MSBA in 2022. As this committee well understands, we are in the midst of the eligibility period. And tomorrow evening is our chance to seek local authorization for the feasibility study. I'll spend some time explaining to the residents what a feasibility study is, what we would hope to accomplish with that feasibility study, documenting existing conditions and assessing enrollment, assessing site conditions, site requirements, et cetera, et cetera. Beyond that, ultimately, the intention of a feasibility study is to help us identify the most cost-effective, educationally appropriate solution. So these feasibility studies, as this committee understands, but for the public, these are extensive feasibility studies that take place over anywhere from 12 to 24 months. One of the things that we will try to explain to the residents is the feasibility study financing and how we identified the $1.6 million costs associated with this feasibility study, and also the town's approach to financing that feasibility study. If there were questions on this particular slide, I certainly would defer to either Mr. Mazza or the town finance director, Paul Pasterzik. But certainly that would be a key consideration for the residents. If needed, we do have some comps that help us understand what other communities have incurred when they have conducted a feasibility study, so that data is available to us. And, you know, though tomorrow night the focus is on the feasibility study, many folks want to understand what's around the corner, and so we'll spend some time talking to the residents about what would happen if we were successful, if Article 1 is approved tomorrow, and I know this committee is behind and supportive of this project and supportive of the feasibility study, was supportive of the statement of interest. So if we are successful in securing financing for that feasibility study, this would give residents some idea of the timeline that is in front of us. You can see that it's you know, this is a long road. It will go quickly, and some of it will depend on, you know, how much we are working together as a community. The more we're working together, the more school committees working with select board and the building committee, you know, the more likely that this timeline will go expeditiously. I think it's only fair, though, to talk to the community, too, about what the next steps would be without the approval of Article 1 tomorrow. The reality would be that if Article 1 is not approved tomorrow, that we would need to reapply to the MSBA, and or I should say, and if we reapplied, certainly that could mean another long road in front of us. We know how long it took us to get the attention of the MSBA the first time, but alternatively, the community would be expected to address the deficiencies without the participation of the MSBA. And frankly, that's a tall order. And so, again, using the 2021 estimates, which we know have, those figures are only as good as when the ink dried on the paper. We know that, costs have escalated since that time, but certainly Collier's documented a significant number of projects that need to be addressed at our 2 middle schools. So that's just a sort of a sneak preview for you in terms of what we hope to talk to the residents about tomorrow evening. And if you have any feedback for us, it would be appreciated. Or if you have any questions that might help me clarify the presentation, I'm all ears. So, thank you.
All right, on that note, any questions, comments, or considerations from Dr. O'Shea's whole report? Doesn't have to be just this. Zach?
No questions. I just really appreciate the comp slide, as well as the next steps without approval. I think, given the way that town meeting is set up, with so many folks having the ability to ask a lot of follow-up questions, I feel like that clarifies things that might help focus folks on the right things instead of the questions about what else might be out there.
Julie?
I had a couple of thoughts, take it or leave it, but one might be to, I think you mentioned that it will be a study of Glenbrook and Williams and both kind of halfway through, and
Yeah.
that might be something to
Yeah.
talk about up front, because I think that's a question a lot of people have.
Elevate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think it might be helpful to just to clarify for people the difference between a feasibility study and the Collier's study, that it's not double counting spending.
Yeah.
It's not like we're.
Yeah.
And then, as Zach said, I think the comp thing is really helpful for people, because I think that's the other thing, is like, it's just a lot of money for a study.
Yeah, so I think that's a great point, because sometimes I've heard, well, don't you already know? Haven't you already studied this? And the Collier's study was sort of a 5-figure study that helped us understand the deficiencies. The feasibility study is much different. It ultimately will help us arrive at a solution, and that's a critical difference, and it's a much more in-depth study, as all of you know.
I think the other thing that occurred to me was, when you talk about what happens if we don't do this, obviously one option is to pay to address the deficiencies, but the other is that we may end up having to build new schools without MSBA support, right? Which would be even more.
Yeah, I mean, it's very rare for communities to take on a construction or even a major renovation
Right.
without the participation of the MSBA.
And I think it's helpful to just make that point to
Yeah.
people, that this is like.
We have an opportunity to, secure, depending on what the ultimate reimbursement rate is, but we have an opportunity to secure perhaps 50% of eligible costs would be returned to us through the MSBA grant. And this feasibility study is also subject to reimbursement, which that's a question that I've gotten in recent weeks.
Kevin?
Yeah, a couple things, Marty. So one, is it true that if this gets voted down, we can't come back to the Springtown meeting?
We cannot come back to the Springtown meeting because that is after the eligibility
Okay.
period ends, so we would have to petition, I suppose, the select board to have a special town meeting
Okay.
prior to the May town meeting.
Okay, thankful.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So, all right, I do like the comp slide, but I'm confused. I don't understand the
Yeah.
order. And that's the thing that my brain focused on, instead of like what I'm supposed to be getting out of here. I don't understand why it's in the order that it's in.
From left to right, or top to bottom, or both?
Why does it go 19, 19, 19, 21, 19, 20, 20?
The ones on the far right are high school projects, and the ones on the left of the chart are middle school projects.
So why do I care about high school projects?
Well, given that we will be studying 2 schools, the feedback we received from the MSBA is that we ought to look at high school feasibility studies as well.
Okay.
Just given the scope of what we need to look at, and the square footage and the size of the 2 sites, that it would be wise to look at
Okay.
some bigger projects. Yeah.
Can you like, you have that nice break.
Yeah.
I don't
Put it in the middle.
Just,
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
Mr. Maz
I can't
thinks
get it.
along those
Start
terms
line.
too, so we can work on that for sure before it goes up on the screen
And
tomorrow.
then the other thing that I think would be helpful is if we can remind the town, like, how things worked for the high school, right? In terms of, like, again, maybe I looked at it too quickly. I think we should say, look, this was how the high school went. In terms of, we did a feasibility study, it cost whatever it cost, we did the whole project, it cost this, we got this much reimbursement. Just to remind folks, like, that was how the process worked here. Clearly, the numbers are different now because
Right.
it's, everything that has happened. But I think without reminding folks that we did this big project and we got reimbursed 40%? So I don't remember the exact, but it was in that ballpark?
52.
Oh, okay, but I think that would be helpful because I'm nervous that people are going to imagine that we're going to spend whatever they imagine and that we're going to get reimbursed like 20%. Because again, I think we need to put something in here, and maybe we put, it's plus or minus 10% or whatever it is. Like, I just want to,
Yeah.
I can see people not voting for this because they don't know what we're actually talking about in terms of
Right.
money potentially for the town. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it is, the intent tomorrow is to put forward a proposal for financing the feasibility study. And I do find what you're saying is true, that when we've talked to community groups about this, they will want to understand the full scope, the entire project.
Right.
And so I want to honor that. I also want to balance it with the fact that we have to take this sort of one step at a time, and that
Sure.
that residents conceivably could support this, and it would provide us with some super valuable information. But there are other opportunities down the road where the community will be weighing in and making some important decisions. So we'll in my comments, for sure, I can reflect that at least, or add some bullets. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Julie?
Oh, I was just gonna say, could you maybe show what Kevin, if we're not showing like the whole budget for the high school, like what portion of the feasibility study was reimbursed, maybe just to reflect
Yeah,
that
if we
point.
could go back in the annals, but I'm guessing the feasibility study was reimbursed at whatever the reimbursement rate was at the time.
I feel like that is helpful to
Yeah,
know.
yeah, so at the time, Tom is saying around 52% was
For
the,
reimbursable cost is about 50 or 52%.
yeah, yeah. The MSBA sets that reimbursement rate, I believe, on an annual basis, depending on, the socioeconomics of a town.
Do we know what it's been over the last couple of years?
Don't,
Yeah.
I thought I saw something that said it might be close to where we were, about 50%.
It hasn't moved a lot, yeah.
Other questions, comments? Mary?
I just wanted to agree with something Julie said earlier about talking about both middle schools at the beginning, and then saying that the reason that both middle schools are not in is because you can only have one in at a time,
Right.
and that it will involve both. And the reason is because Glenbrook is the newer school, so I actually have had several community members say to me, why aren't you doing Williams? That
Yeah.
kind of, so that was one thing. I can't remember, I feel like I've read so much about this, and I know you literally just presented this, but did you talk about how we're funding this in this presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay.
Admittedly, I went through it quickly.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that's in
Yep.
there, because I think people are going to wonder, is this going to make my taxes go up? If I, or some,
Yeah.
and then, I'm just thinking I'm putting my teacher hat on, there's a lot of words in this presentation.
Yeah.
And it might be really helpful that you walk everybody through all the details, but
Sure.
then you have these are the top 5 reasons,
Yeah.
or these are the top,
Yeah.
because if somebody is hearing this information for the first time, it does, even in this quick overview, I was still maybe thinking about the slide you were on when you went to the next slide.
Yeah,
It's just
right,
a
right.
lot to process.
Yeah.
And Rebecca is very strict on times, which she should be. So
is.
we
She-
should, she
yes.
runs a tight meeting,
We'll
and
have
that
to
is really important.
Get to the
So,
point, yes.
Yeah,
For
so I
sure,
just-
yeah. Yeah.
some summary statements might be really helpful.
In terms of the
Oh, yeah,
financing,
good. Okay.
the bullets here, something that Mr. Mazza worked on with Paul Pasterzik, the finance director. And so the $800,000 is from reserves, and then the other $800,000 would be paid out over short-term bond anticipation notes. Again, they'll go out to market and make decisions, but essentially, you're talking about short-term borrowing that would be paid out of the annual operating budget. So,
All right, Gianna?
Yeah, I thank you for saying that, Mary, because and thank you for doing this, all of you and the superintendent. It's a lot of slides.
Yeah.
It's a lot of information.
Yeah.
And I really, can you go to slide, you got your title slide, superintendent? So slide number 2.
Yeah.
So, and are you even allowed to make edits to that? I mean, it's tomorrow.
I would have to just make sure that it gets to the device that we're using tomorrow. I have to see if there's any logistical challenges with that, but.
Yeah, I mean, so,
Yeah.
I hate to throw it all at you, but I mean, I definitely think this slide, maybe even if you pulled the headers from each slide and made it a slide, you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like
So they know what's coming.
what's coming.
Yeah,
But I do
yeah.
think
Yeah,
what will happen if you say yes and what will happen if you say no
right.
is, that's how people,
Yeah.
it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
It's a long night
Yeah.
usually, and so,
Yeah.
the top 5 or headings or whatever as one slide,
Yeah.
or if you can't get it into the edits, then you just do it yourself, but,
Yep.
and then this is what happens if it's yes, this is what happens if it's no, and how much it's gonna cost, and is it gonna affect my tax,
Sure. Yeah.
because this is a lot.
Yeah.
And I hate, sorry to
Yeah,
throw
no,
it at you right now, but.
it's a challenge because, again, when most people, when we talk to them about the feasibility study, they want to know the longer term, well, what are you going to do? What, are you building one school? Is it there are 2 schools? Going to renovate 2? Which site? What field?
Yeah.
And so those are questions that people are eager to hear the answer to, but I hear what you're saying, kind of zeroing in on the, what the key components of this feasibility study are. That makes
Well,
sense.
and you said it perfectly, Superintendent,
Yeah.
we have to take this step by step.
Yeah.
Because I know even for myself, even when we're in conversations about anything, my brain is already oh, okay. But no, you have to, you reel me back in sometimes,
Yeah.
no, this is just about this
Yeah.
feasibility study.
Yeah.
It's not about who,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think, I don't know, Julie or somebody said, you got to make that clear as well. We're just talking
Yeah.
about this one piece of this gigantic project.
Yeah.
And hopefully people can kind of zoom in on that.
Julie?
I just had,
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
just one more. I'm not sure if this was already reflected in your slides, but from thinking of people who are not talking about this every day, are you saying what a feasibility study is, and then I
Yeah.
think whether. Are you saying whether it means we will definitely get the funding from MSBA or whether not, or whether it's maybe we get it? I think those are some.
Yeah, if we were to complete the feasibility study and the components that I'm listing here are what the MSBA will expect out of our feasibility study. And the idea is that it's sort of an iterative process where you're just starting with a series of options, and as you go through the process and as you go do the more and more evaluation, more and more community feedback, more and more building committee meetings, you're winnowing it down to a single option that the MSBA can get behind and that the community will get behind. I mean, the thing that we would not want to get to the end of the road with a feasibility study with a proposal that didn't make sense to the community and didn't make sense to the MSBA. So it really is a partnership. I mean, it sounds cliche, and that's what the MSBA will always say, but it truly is. They want to get behind a solution that the community wants to get behind. They won't steer us towards a solution the community doesn't want, and we can't steer the MSBA towards a solution they won't they won't finance,
I
so.
think it's helpful to say it the way you just said
Yeah,
it about, like,
yeah.
there's the community input is going into this.
Yeah.
Because I think you can think of it as just like a study, and that's the option that we have, and,
Yeah.
you know, that's what we're saying.
Yeah, it will, we will need to lay out, what does a repair to code look like? What would an ad reno look like at one site or the other? And what would a new construction look like of a single facility? So that will have to be laid out. And then within those three broad categories, we would have to identify sub-options, ultimately zeroing in on one of those options as you get to the end of the potentially 24 months.
Jamie?
And I don't want to jump, so I was going to jump to
Yeah.
a different topic that you had brought up, so you can, does anybody, I'm good with this.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Good. You had mentioned at the beginning of your presentation about meeting with the chief,
Yeah.
things like that. And I don't think it's more for public forum, but I guess the only thing I would say to that is really making sure that we, sit back, have a plan, to make sure there's not bureaucracies in place that are going to stop people from doing things.
Yeah.
And I would really, from my vantage point, say, hey, chief, are you really ready for X, Y, Z? Because my understanding, with knowing people that have been involved in, a few of these different incidents around the country, is that a lot of it comes back to the bureaucracy, when it comes to individuals who can take action to hopefully help.
Yeah.
To where they're not able to because we've got barriers, way too much government intervention and people not being able to do that. So my thing sitting back, and I don't really think it's a thing, but chief, what happens in this scenario, making sure they know who's in charge.
Yeah.
In different scenarios. It's one thing if somebody's here on campus, we know it's Long Meadow Police, but if it's something more significant, I think we really need to challenge the local officials to say, are you truly ready? Because I don't know if we are. So that was my one comment on that, is that it's fine, you talk about it, but who's in charge?
Right.
And it's probably not the Long Meadow Police.
Right.
I mean, if there's an incident like that, they're not in charge, probably. So who is? I don't know. And then the second thing is it was just more comment,
Yep.
is, hey, let's, I don't think it's for public, debate or comment. I mean, as long as they're talking about it and thinking about it, they can present back if they like. And the other thing, calendar committee. Are we on the calendar committee? I wasn't
You
sure. I
are
heard
the-
committee.
You're the ultimate calendar committee.
Okay.
You set the calendar.
Okay.
Based on a recommendation that we bring forward under the terms of the contract.
Okay.
So that will come to you.
My just general comment on that, in talking with Northampton Amherst, they've made some pretty interesting changes to their calendar, and Wilbraham has also made some interesting changes to their calendar. Please take that into account. I just find it interesting. They're making pretty big changes, whether it's winter break, there's major holiday changes that, Northampton Amherst are making on their calendars, from what I've been told. So I think as all of them making those changes, I think we should take that into account as to what did they do, why they do it. Because they've made some interesting changes from my viewpoint. So that's the only thing. I didn't know if we were on it or whether it was.
Yeah, no, the school committee sets the calendar ultimately.
That's kind of like after you've already talked a lot about it, like a lot.
Yeah, again, certainly there would be nothing that would preclude the school committee from making it an agenda item at an upcoming meeting to, have a conversation about what your hopes would be for a school calendar. So
Okay.
that could happen.
Okay.
I like the point you made about the safety piece. I think part of the benefit of these tabletop exercises, I hope that it strips away awkward bureaucracy if you're in the middle of a crisis, because we've gone through these tabletop exercises and we have the relationships and the communication pathways. It hopefully, helps us respond really quickly to some emergency event. And that's really why I like the tabletop exercises, because it has the power to, make sure that bureaucracy and titles and stuffy communication protocols don't get in the way.
Yeah, and that was my only concern, because knowing that they did get in the way on
Yeah.
things that could have been
Yep.
maybe not solved, but at least maybe addressed a little bit quicker because of that. And in many of these other instances, it did happen. So that's all, so as long as that's being talked about and they're figuring it out, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, other questions? Yes,
Yeah,
Jen?
Superintendent, so I'm guessing the tabletop activity is you're having but when you say tabletop activity?
These are, we gather in a conference room with police and fire, and with custodians, front office personnel, administrators, and we work through a hypothetical safety scenario.
Okay, so you got like
And-
literally stuff on
Yeah,
table.
we might have our safety plans in front of us.
Yeah.
We might have some of our communication tools in front of us, but we just walk through, all right, this is what hypothetically, this is the problem in front of us, this is what we've discovered, this is the threat that we've received, real or perceived, and how are we going to respond? What's the communication going to look like? What's our response going to look like? What are we doing with students? What's the involvement of police? What's the involvement of fire, DPW, all kinds of entities, so.
Okay.
Yeah, they're great, they're great exercises that kind of put us through our paces, really.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Other comments, questions, or feedback on the superintendent's report? All right, Dagan, you with us? You're up.
with you.
All right, student representative report, you are on.
Thank you. So I just have a few things for you. One was like John had previously said, the LHS College Fair was today. Great experience, got to go. I mean, I'm a senior. I pretty much have my mind made up about now. It's October. But a lot of juniors and some seniors looking for that home for the next 4 years was really, really impactful for a lot of students. Got to see a lot of colleges they don't usually get reached out to or look out for. But also I'd like to comment on the career opportunities that were part of the college fair. It wasn't all about going to college. Not every student's path is a four-year degree. Long Meadow Fire was there, the Army National Guard was there, many different machinist companies were there, just for students who need another outlet into a career field, possibly not being college. I think that was very important and impactful for some students. LHS Connect blocks have been going on since September. We just had one recently last week where all students in the high school got together with their homerooms for an hour. And this month, their topic was the vision of the graduate. I know you guys love talking about the vision of the graduate. Students got to go through the vision of the graduate and see how that affects their day in, day out at the high school, how best teachers are implementing the vision of the graduate in their lessons, and what they're being maybe taught the most and in the best way, and ranking all the categories of the vision of the graduate right behind Jamie over there. Seeing what was most impactful, how it's being taught, and what way it's being conveyed is the best. The LHS Chamber Concert, like already said by Dr. O'Shea, is this Thursday at 7 p.m. in Sem A. Please come see the students perform their pieces. They've been working very, very hard, myself included. They're working very, very hard on their student-produced pieces. This is not something they do in class. This is all on their own. And it's very, very important they have a very good showing to show that support for the LHS community. And it's that time of year again. The Long Meadow Music Fruit Sale is going on. So if you see any music students walking around town with a sheet in their hand, please try to support. The Long Meadow Music Department has done so many good things for so many good students, like myself. And funds is how you get those things done. You have instruments and all those experiences that they can have within the music department. So please support that. And that's all I have to report at this time. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you for sharing about the career editions for College Fair. That's very cool. Appreciated that. All right, moving on to other reports. LPVEC, Mary.
Yes, the meeting took place on October 19th. I was unable to attend because of a family conflict, but real quick, here are some highlights. We did receive a Safe and Supportive Schools grant. It's a competitive grant for $10,000. We also received a grant for $110,000 called the 2023 Skills Capital Grant Program Award. And we also received a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, which they've received in previous years as well. The meeting, as usual, had a financial update, and the next meeting will take place on November 15th.
Wonderful, thank you. Energy and sustainability?
No report this week.
Thank you. And SEAL, Gianna?
Just looking it up. I pulled it up earlier. I felt like, Kevin, you inspired me. I used technology. So SEAL, yes, Special Education Alliance of Long Meadow is still cranking, and their next meeting is November 9th. I can't believe it's almost November. And they'll have the elementary assistant principals / special education supervisors provide an overview of programs at elementary schools. So again, they always have great speakers, great presenters, lots of information, and you don't have to have a child with special abilities to attend these meetings or participate, or even just reach out to sealma.org. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we are moving on to our subcommittee reports. I don't see any reports right now. Finance, no report. Yes, other meetings coming up. Finance, what, do you guys have a date for your
We're
next
working on
meeting?
a date.
Working on a date. Policy is next time we have a meeting, correct?
November 8th.
November
November
8th, thank you very much. Curriculum, I think, is in progress for planning, right? Am I missaying that?
We don't have a meeting on the books.
Don't have a meeting on the books yet. Any Val sub? In progress. In the books. In progress, okay. All right, ongoing business, we have already completed. New business, we have a preliminary overnight field trip request from Long Meadow High. Who's taking that one?
I can take it. No vote required. This is just a preliminary notice to you of a request that will be finalized. Just to back up a little bit, pre-COVID, when we tended to have more overnight field trips, our practice was to bring to the committee overnight field trip requests in advance of a request for approval. The idea is basically to kind of put the preliminary information out there, and see if the committee has any concerns, and if not, then we would proceed with the final planning. So that's kind of what we're doing here tonight, is just signaling to you that the close community is preparing to attend the CADCA National Forum in Maryland in January, and there's an itinerary laid out for you in the packet. You'll see that it involves 4 to 6 students, 2 chaperones. They've gone down to this conference in the past. It's been a great experience for our students. Again, no action is needed or expected tonight. It's really just to let you know that this trip is in the early stages of planning. If you have any concerns, you can let us know now. If you have no concerns, we will proceed with the planning.
Do we need to make a motion to approve the preliminary request?
Did you say we have or have not?
We have.
Oh, you have, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't think that, all right.
I'm sorry.
It's been a while.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, it's been a very long time. I had to dig back.
Excuse me. All right, then, discussion and/or motions at hand.
Can I just ask a
Yes,
question?
absolutely.
What's CADCA?
CADCA is it's the Association of Community Drug Prevention Coalitions. And so this is funded by the Close Community Grant that was recently re-upped for the next 5 years. So Paul McNeil has done a great job leading that close community and engaging kids in sort of the civics associated with drug prevention and intervention work.
Yes.
I think, Jamie, do you remember, or Kevin, or both of you, I think, didn't they go in 2019 and they presented to us, right? And it was like really cool, like they had like pictures and, yeah. I just remember it was like a really great experience for everybody, so.
It's exciting to see these back on
Yeah,
the agenda
yeah,
again.
Yeah.
All right, any further questions, comments, and/or motions to make?
Do you want the motion? I move that the school committee approve the preliminary request to secure prices and make arrangements for students from Long Meadow High School to travel to Maryland and Washington, D.C. for the 2023 CADCA National Forum from January 30th to February 2nd, 2023.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Julie. Any further discussion? We will move to a roll call vote. Zach?
Yes.
Gianna?
Yes.
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Julie? Kevin?
Yes.
And Jim.
Yes.
And yes for me as well. All right, wonderful. Next up is the Long Range Plan Steering Committee. We received a request from the Town Manager's Office for representation on the Long Range Planning Steering Committee for the school committee to send a rep. We have some information in our packet regarding the working of this group. Do you have anything to add into that?
No, there's quite a bit of detail
Perfect.
for you in your packet on the purpose and scope of the Long Range Planning Committee. It's funded by a grant that the town received for strategic planning.
As a heads up, these are meetings that would happen on a weekday at roughly 7 o'clock. They last an hour or two, and they meet approximately once every other month or so. So, we need to appoint someone who would like to be interested in serving on the Long Range Planning Steering Committee, and/or do we have discussion related to what that might entail or what to expect? Anybody at all? Each committee, if I'm correct, in town puts one person forward for this.
I believe so. I believe that's what they're
Yes.
asking for.
All of the town committees have a representative. Is there anyone who has any questions about this or would like to consider this?
When do we have to tell them by, Nicole?
That's a great question. I don't remember in the meeting. I want to say we were meant to talk about it at this meeting, which implied soon, but I don't know that there was a specific date.
The email was in your packet. I
Don't have it in front of
I
me.
think they were hoping to launch in November.
Yeah. So
with the-
soon.
with
Oh,
this-
yeah, there was
yeah.
something that said early November.
Yeah.
And they'd like to have a meeting shortly after that.
So when I hear long range, is this like a forever committee? And when does it stop?
My guess would be it is a long committee, but like other committees, we could tackle it each year when we talk about appointments.
So, what is the commitment again? Because I feel like that was a little loose. on the
It was a
details.
little loose, but I did
Hour or
ask
two,
Marty to
or-
explain a little further. Roughly 1 to 2 hour meeting approximately every other month, beginning in November. Yes.
And what is the charge exactly of their long-range plan steering committee? What are they hoping to develop over time?
A long-range plan for the town. Yeah.
So-
Go ahead.
I can just read what it says in the email. So
Yep.
it says it's a 2-year grant, so at least that puts
2
some
years.
cap on it.
Yeah.
And it says, will fund the town to update its original 2004 long-range plan to reflect current existing conditions in town and municipal services and to better incorporate considerations of climate resilience and social equity into the town's long-term visioning.
So coordinating all of those committees to determine what good long-term goals are for the town.
I'll add to what Kevin said from an email that we sent to some members of the Long Meadow High student body from the town manager's office. The purpose is to set priorities for climate resilience, social equity, economic development, and land use, municipal services, public health, education, housing, and other quality of life issues.
So who is this gonna go, who's gonna go back to? Like you following, like who's actually,
Yeah.
it's one thing to have a committee, but if you
Right.
have no power to actually like do anything?
I don't know if the charter or the practice would require that the long-range plan be approved at town meeting or the select board, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Probably the select board or town meeting.
I would hope that there
Potentially.
would be some entity or body that would
Yeah.
approve the plan.
And if you want a little more background, we
Yeah.
talk about this a lot at Energy and Sustainability
Okay.
as a way to guide the thinking of that committee, and that we're struggling because the current plan is from 2004. Right. So I know that committee would welcome this work to help guide where we put our efforts on energy and sustainability issues.
Again, I'm just reading from the documents here that the state law requiring a master plan
Excuse me.
that includes a statement of goals and policies and elements relating to land use, housing, economic development, natural and cultural resources, open space and recreation, services and facilities, and circulation. Not sure what that means.
In full transparency, there is also a note that says that committee members will be asked to serve on subcommittees as well. And those would schedule their own meetings.
I guess
Just
I'd
so it-
suggest if you can't bring it, if you can't bring it to
Sure, everybody knows.
if you can't bring it to resolution tonight and they need to get started, without having this particular position filled, I'm sure they can proceed and get their work started, and you
Do we
could.
need to officially appoint someone via a vote?
No, you're, as chair, you could appoint somebody.
Okay. So how about this then? If we don't have anybody who is jumping and ready to make it happen, email me if you are interested, and/or Diane, and/or Paul, if it is something you're interested in. And if not, then I'll appoint myself instead. That will work too. But we'll see if anybody else has any questions and/or follow-up, et cetera, and we can at least get started in November and see kind of how it goes from there. All right, perfect.
Nicole, if I could just,
Yes.
it would just be helpful to know a little bit more, like, who leads the meetings and what are the subcommittees? And, I mean, I
And
know we
exactly
have
how
this,
often
like,
those.
what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What does it really look like?
Yeah.
And to Jamie's point, what is the outcome? I mean, I know that we have this packet, but I
Yeah.
feel like I don't have a great understanding of how this committee has operated in the past, or what impact they've had, or.
I think given its age, I'd be curious to talk to somebody knowing that this plan has been around for a while now. It might be good to track down someone who maybe was involved in the last long-range plan. So that can be something that'll make a note on and see if we can reach out to someone who might have further information for us on exactly what sort of the process looked like, and how that went.
Or Nicole, since it's so old, would Lynn Simmons have any insight on? Like, isn't
Well, the
she our-
request is coming from the town manager's office, so yes.
Could she, I know our next meeting is November 8th, but could she maybe present to us at that meeting, just her thoughts on it, or if somebody doesn't come forward, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, she would probably be best able to answer the questions that
Yeah.
somebody might have.
We
Just
can
a thought.
definitely reach out and find out some more details. Maybe more specificity and details is required in order for us to make a better decision together. That works. And if it's November 8th is our next meeting, we have time anyway. If we're not going to meet before November 8th at this point. Yes.
Just from what I've heard, because Corinne comes to the energy and sustainability meetings, I really think this is like the town's version of the vision of the graduate. I think they need some structure to make decisions, and I feel like right now they don't have that because the previous plan is just, it's not useful, it's so old. So I think that the town manager and assistant town manager really want this to happen. That's why they got the grant funding, that's why they want it to go on, and I think it will be their document to prioritize where we put our resources when questions come up. Do we need a position in the DPW, or do you need a position somewhere else? I think this document's going to help them with that. So I think it is going to have impact, and I know that the town manager's office wants it to have impact. So, I think it is an important thing. That's at least the way it's been described to us on energy and sustainability.
And I think knowing it's coming as part of that town manager's office as well, that it would be something that they have a vision and a plan for before it begins, to make sure that it's moving along at an efficient and logical kind of pace. So, but we can definitely find out more specificity, so that we're easier able to make a decision. If it's something you think you might be interested in, let me know, and we'll circle back to it on November 8th. That should be plenty of time. If they're meeting with somebody in early November, I can imagine they're scheduling a meeting before the 8th. I think we have time.
And we're going to invite Lynn to the November 8th
We
meeting.
can talk and see if that makes the most sense, or if we can get more information and
right.
report out.
Yep.
One or the other.
Gotcha.
We'll definitely circle back to it, though. All right. Other questions on this? Other things we'd like to find out, just so I know? No. Okay, we have no executive session, and so actually, I think we are ready for our final motion, if anybody would like to make that.
I move that the school committee adjourn the October 24th, 2022 school committee meeting.
Wonderful, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? All right, Zach?
Yes.
Gianna?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, and we hope to see everyone tomorrow night.
Go Patriots.